Hi, this is Kaya Roman, and I'm going to read the introduction to The Joy Plan, How I Took 30 Days to Stop Worrying, Quit Complaining, and Find Ridiculous Happiness. Introduction. It was cool on that early October day. The afternoon Santa Cruz fog had rolled in and covered our townhouse in a blanket of gray, but I was sweating. I paced the floor in my small home office, listening with disbelief to the conversation taking place with my business partners over the web conference on my laptop. Even though I was the only one home that afternoon, I locked the door to my office and drew the curtains closed tight. I needed to somehow block out the world so no one would see my rising shame. The words, shut down the company, buyout, and bankrupt sounded as if they were spoken in a dream as white noise began to fill my ears. Feeling dizzy, I stumbled to my desk and tried to focus on the computer screen, but all I saw was black. The sound in my ears was growing, and I was falling into it. What started as static had become a scream, and I felt it reverberate through my entire being. No! Not this, not now. I had put it all on the line, and I had failed. All that time, all that money. And Dan, oh shit, what would I tell Dan? Please trust me, this business is going to be a huge success. Within a couple of years, you'll never have to work again if you don't want to. I just need you to give me time. I had begged my husband when we first discussed my investing large amounts of time and money into a startup business. But now the time had run out, and I had crashed and burned. Dan would not be retiring anytime soon. I would not be earning millions of dollars. And I had little to show for my 18-hour workdays except for the 20 pounds I'd gained from sitting at a computer all day, every day, for months on end. The irony of this was not lost on me, since all the work was for a health and wellness company that helped people, among other things, lose weight. In the days that followed, I numbly signed papers, closed accounts, handed over passwords, and cried in the bathroom. I felt like crawling into bed and not coming out for a year, but that wasn't possible. My two daughters, Kira and Nava, were 6 and 8 years old. I had responsibilities I couldn't escape. So as I went through the motions of my life, I just tried to get through another task, another checklist, so that another day would end. I've read that when you have depression, you don't care about anything, and when you have anxiety, you care too much about everything. But what is it called when you have both at the same time? I felt the anxiety most in my chest, but it was more than a rapid heartbeat. It felt like my lungs were in a vice grip, each gasp for air tinged with panic. My mind was racing on red alert, but rather than having productive thoughts, it only said the same thing over and over again. Oh no, oh no, oh no. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And yet, in this state of panic, even as fear prickled my mind, all my body wanted to do was sleep, while anxiety yanked me upward, panting, grasping, scratching, clawing for breath, for safety, for answers, for anything but this. Depression heaved me downward. Sleep, depression said. Perhaps if I could sleep, I would wake to find it was all a dream. Perhaps if I could sleep, I would come up with a solution in the morning. But sleep didn't bring relief, only fitful dreams and waking in more panic. I dreaded the prospect of leaving the bed, even though things weren't any better from there. I quickly slipped from being a capable executive, leading multinational teams and complex marketing campaigns, to an apparition, barely capable of taking a shower. Usually ambitious and organized, I was now a shadow of my former self. From the time I could talk, I had been organizing things, even if they were my stuffed animals, and taking practical steps to achieve my next plan. I was so good at making plans that I even got paid to make them for other people when I grew up, as a marketing and event planner for businesses and organizations. Throughout my life, each time one of my plans was complete, I would already have another one in place. But when this plan, my grand plan, took a nosedive, I was caught completely off guard, with no backup plan or direction. It's just a business, some rational voice, mine or another's, would say from time to time. But it wasn't just a business. It was my plan to create financial security for my family, my plan to free Dan from the job he hated, my plan to make an impact and an income that I could be proud of. I had already played it all out in my mind, the company's success, our eventual expansion, my cut of the profits. I was so sure the plan was foolproof, but now I only felt like a fool. And what felt even worse was that I didn't have a plan for what to do next. Knowing I was desperate for a way to move forward, my friend Nico told me about a concept she'd heard recently. You could turn your life around if you made your own joy your top priority for 30 days. Granted, this concept came from a rather supernatural source, a channeled message from a spiritual teacher that Nico turned to from time to time for inspiration. But with no other ideas and a small buyout that was enough to float me for about a month, I decided to give it a try, which shows you just how desperate I really was. Spending a month focusing on my own joy actually seemed like a viable plan for changing my life. I figured I didn't have to believe in the spiritual aspect of this idea for it to work. I knew enough about brain behavior to understand that my thoughts are formed by neural connections, and those thoughts influence my outlook, my actions, my choices, and eventually my life. Perhaps 30 days of intentional joy was long enough to get my life back on track, either from the magic of outside forces or from the power I possessed within. If this strategy didn't work, I promised myself I would get a job and go back to contributing to society after 30 days. But if I was going to try it, I was going to give it my best shot. Luckily, my husband was supportive of this crazy idea, not necessarily because he thought it would work, but mostly because after 14 years with me, he knew that once I get it into my head to do something, it's futile to try and stop me. So for 30 days, I dedicated my daily actions to the hot pursuit of joy from all angles, from the spiritual to the physiological and everything in between. I called on the body of scientific and personal research I had amassed over the years involving hormones, neurotransmitters, psychology, and mindfulness, and synthesized it into a single, deliberate plan. The Joy Plan. Because I think like an entrepreneur, I decided to approach my joy plan like a business plan. I thought I'd fully analyze the background and circumstances that led to the project, set my joy objectives, implement my joy creation strategy, assess and tackle any challenges that came up, call on the strengths of my support team, measure my results, and predict joyful outcomes for the future. As a planner, I was thinking in terms of practical action. I was going to do the joy plan. But although all areas of my business plan-based idea were eventually addressed, what actually unfolded was very different from what I expected. I came to realize that for my real joy to emerge, I had to be on the joy plan and allow the plan to reveal itself to me. As it turned out, the plan that revealed itself was the best plan I never made. What follows is a written record of the biggest epiphany of my life. It details an experiment that was carefully planned and executed, although the process itself and the results I experienced were often surprising. It was a practical journey to ridiculous happiness. And through this planned yet spontaneous process, I changed my life in ways that I think anyone can, including you. I do recognize how rare it was that I had an entire month to dedicate solely to my own joy. And because I actually had this rare opportunity, even though it started off as something I was doing just for myself, I really did it for you too, because I had the time not only to do it, but to write down what worked along the way. Now that I've written it down, I believe it can be done under any circumstances, including an already busy life. The Joy Plan is a practical memoir, a guide that's illustrated through my personal story, and by the time you finish it, I hope you'll be inspired to create your own joy plan too.